So the advice I'd offer my younger self is the advice that I also give myself periodically, and that is slow down, enjoy the process. Don't be in a hurry to get to the next adventure, the next challenge. Enjoy the moment, because that moment isn't going to happen again.
I've been blessed with a lot of meaningful Jewish experiences, from study to travel to places like Israel and Russia and Syria. But I would say right now, working with the Jewish Family Service Cleveland, just around hundreds of people who are absolutely dedicated to serving the Jewish community with home care and service for disabled people and developmentally disabled people. It's extraordinary. I've never experienced anything like the intensity and the compassion and the generosity of the people at that agency.
My most meaningful Jewish experience has been going to the morning minyan at B'nai Yeshurun congregation since January 27th, 2005, when my father passed away. I've continued to go since that time. I'm there for people that are in their worst times of their lives after losing people, their loved ones. About 15 years ago, they put me in charge, and I continue to go to this day. And in May of this year, we lost our grandson. My community was there for me as I was there for them, and it's been the most enlightening Jewish experience I've had in my lifetime.
So I would say my most meaningful Jewish experience has been serving on the board of the Hebrew Free Loan Association of Northeast Ohio, or HFLA, as we typically call it these days. I've been on the board about 9 years now. Most recently, I was president for about 3 years during the pandemic, so that was fun and challenging. But what has been so meaningful for me about it is that as a Jew, I'm able to support individuals and their families from all walks of life and all backgrounds with a hand up, really, to help them improve their lives or the situation that they're in. What is so cool to me about the organization, what we do, is that making interest-free loans is wonderful and super cool and unique. It's part of Jewish teaching as well. But what is even more meaningful is that, again, we're making these loans to people regardless of their religious beliefs. And I can't think of any better way to put tikkun olam into action.
I have to say my first trip to the Kotel, to the wall in Israel, was my most meaningful Jewish experience. Very profound. I've been there many, many times since that first trip, but you know, the first time you see it, the first time you go to the plaza, there's nothing like it in the world. I try to motivate people by example. I mean, that's probably a common answer, but I think it's really the answer. You know, it's hard to motivate people through fear or through other kinds of techniques, but by example, I think is the best way.
Memorable experiences, I think, are different at different ages, and I think that Jewish experiences are really about community, like most other religions. So I remember dancing with my grandfather with the Torah at Simchas Torah when I was 3 or 4 years old, my bar mitzvah, my children being born, their bar mitzvahs, the community coming in and supporting us. And when I was in Israel a couple years ago, we went to the wall for Friday night service, and then we went back to the hotel for dinner. And as we were climbing the stairs, you would see the yeshiva bacher come running down the stairs, singing, so happy it was Shabbat.
The most meaningful Jewish experience for Fred and myself was when Brian and Tal got married in Israel 11 years ago. It was so wonderful to be with our family and Tal's family, who we had never met. And it was just beautiful to be in the land of Israel.
I've learned a lot of important lessons from my dad. Being a clinician and working at the hospital has really been, I think, the most rewarding part of my life so far. And I went through a career change, and early on, actually, my dad discouraged my career change when I first asked him about it. And at the time, I was frustrated and unsure of why my dad, who's this amazing clinician, wouldn't want me to be a doctor too. I studied business first, but I realized down the road that he really wanted me to be sure about it and to really have the opportunity to think through and follow through with something. And I did, and I followed through it, and I finished business school, and I graduated, and I worked, and then I decided that I really wanted to be a doctor. And so I think one of the most important lessons that he's taught me is about the importance of following through and making sure that you do everything to the fullest and do it the right way.
Yeah, but you're doing good.
Well, thanks, I appreciate it.
One of the most important lessons that I've learned from my dad is to always be kind. I can remember spending time with him at the hospital when I was little, and then when I was there working, he would stop to talk to everybody. It didn't matter if you were the environmental services worker in the hallway, another nurse, another doctor, everybody's the same. And it's just an important lesson, and I try to live my life the same way and make sure that I'm kind to everyone, to smile, to say hello, because it can make a big difference in somebody's day.
I think that although he was a very public person in his role as a leader at university hospitals, he did most of his leading quietly behind the scenes. And the impact that he has had on our institution as a legacy is really incredible. I can't tell you the number of times, and it still happens probably 2 or 3 times a week, where someone asks about Dad or comments on the way that he was with his patients, the way that he was with his peers, and how he led our organization and was such an incredibly impactful leader.
In terms of being a doctor, community leader, and a philanthropist, my dad has really taught me by example. He really showed me, and I think I learned a lot from him, how to give back to the community. It's something that's really important to me, and I saw it in him, and I've heard stories. I was too little to know that he used to volunteer and go play basketball after he had long shifts as a resident in the inner city, or just the little things that he would do, whether it was quietly. He didn't need the recognition, and it's just really important to give back.
My most meaningful Jewish experience are the times that I visited Israel. I went 3 different times in my life so far. Once was while I was in law school, and I studied there for the summer. The second time I went on a mission with women, and the third time I went with my family on a family mission, and we celebrated my second son's bar mitzvah there. All times were impactful and meaningful, and loved every minute, and that I was able to share it with family and friends while there and when I came back home.
So my most meaningful Jewish experience actually happened during the Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, so the high holidays of COVID. So this was at a time before vaccines. And most synagogues were just coming into like having the in-person services as well were challenging during that early part of COVID. And Green Road Synagogue, we divided ourselves among different places. So this was still in the original building, and then we had a open air tent on Hilltop. But there was such an excitement and such a relief to be together as a kahila, as a congregation. We were physically distanced and we were masked, but we were together. And so that was one really meaningful service.
My most meaningful Jewish experience was growing up in a Jewish household with 2 committed Jewish parents who directed me to Park Synagogue for my Jewish education and to the JCC as a camper initially, so that I later became a counselor, ultimately president of the organization, and that my parents' influence carried to the next generation because I have a son who's a rabbi.
People often tell me that my enthusiasm is infectious, but the reality is it's not about me, it's about you. What are you looking for? Are you looking for a volunteer opportunity, a way to make a meaningful financial contribution, to engage staff, or to just fill your soul? Are you interested in helping children have books in their home? Or do you want to make sure that refugees and foster kids have their basic needs met with dignity? It's about what resonates for you. That's what's going to motivate you.
My most memorable Jewish experiences It's not actually one. I was blessed to have three. The first one happened in 1976 when we emigrated from the former Soviet Union as Russian Jewish refugees. The second experience was when I spent my senior year of high school and graduated from high school in Israel. And the third was when we had a 3-generational bar mitzvah in Israel on Masada. My son turned 13. My father, who never had a bar mitzvah in Russia, was able to have one, taught himself Hebrew. And my husband, also born Jewish, but never had a bar mitzvah. So that was incredibly meaningful.
Most meaningful Jewish experience would be when my late wife, Loretta Quaid, passed away suddenly without warning when she was just 51 years old. And I was angry. I didn't understand it. I wanted to know why. And I had questions that I wanted to answer. So I decided to take courses at the Cleveland College of Jewish Studies in Kabbalah. And I learned about the significance of mystical and spiritual beliefs. It was ultimately grounded in the Torah, which I didn't know, and creation, and the soul, and what happens to the soul after death. And that really helped me get some level of understanding and comfort, and taught me that when you're alive, you should live in a way to your community and to the people around you that is good, because that gives your soul the greatest opportunity to ascend in the life after you die. That was my most meaningful experience.
The most important lesson that I've learned is the need to be both professionally and personally authentic, meaning true to my personality and my values and my spirit, no matter what I've been confronted with. It really has helped, especially with developing and growing the Gathering Place, with people understanding and trusting my passion and the mission of the organization.
My most meaningful Jewish experience is not particularly orthodox, and by that I mean not what people might typically say. Yes, I have a really meaningful experience as president of the American Jewish Committee Cleveland Regional Offices Board, and there's a lot of other things like that that I've done with CRC and Federation. But honestly, having gone to a Catholic university and then discovering that I needed to go and live in Israel for a year was probably my most meaningful experience, because it led me to be in Israel for a year when I was 22 years old and had unbelievable experiences that I still go back to.
My most meaningful Jewish experience has to be going through the conversion process. I actually didn't even know that you could choose to become Jewish. And when I found out, I was really excited and nervous because I knew there was so much to learn. But one of the most meaningful things about being Jewish, I think, is asking questions and always being able to go deeper into your own Jewish experience, and it's never ending. So I really loved my conversion experience, and I love the continued learning that's part of our culture and people.
So if money was no object, I would pretty much do the same thing. I mean, I'm a physician, I love what I do. The only thing I would do is change the ratio. I'm about 90% of my time is actually dedicated to work. I do a lot of work on behalf of the organization that I'm president of, Bikur Cholim of Cleveland, and I would like to spend a lot more time doing that, and of course, spending more time with my family and friends.
My mom, Norma Geller, is the inspiration of my life. In 2 weeks, she turns 91. She spent 6 months here in Cleveland and 6 months in Florida, bopping around in her red convertible on her weekly run to the grocery store and the beauty shop, as she calls it. Mom grew up very modestly during the Depression, and at age 45, she attended college for the first time, received her master's 10 years later, and throughout her life, Mom has created programming to help those less fortunate in the community. Her best example of this was she created a cancer transportation fund as she saw a need for this 30 years ago when she herself was receiving cancer treatments. Mom, I love you, and you're the inspiration of my life and to all those around you.